Environmental corruption or climate corruption is basically the main problem of climate change. It is caused by human beings, us. 안녕하세요, 여러분. My name is Abraham Sumalinog, and I'm working for Transparency International Korea chapter. At present, I am in charge of the Climate Governance Integrity Project in Seoul, South Korea. While I was studying at Korea University at Graduate School of International Studies, while doing my master's, I had seen an advertisement from one of the SIMAI institutions in Seoul, and they're inviting for an intern. And then I got accepted, and I have been working with them in the past 2 months, that period. And then when I graduated from my master's studies, 2 months later, I got invited to work at Transparency International. Since then, I have been working with TI Korea for the past 8 years now. I believe that South Korea is very transparent, given that there are many other issues. In fact, according to the Transparency International's Corruption Perception Index in 2019, South Korea's ranking is 39. That is a high increase, and I really appreciate that and happy to hear that sort of progress in terms of South Korea's fight against corruption. But of course, there is no country that is perfect. Still, South Korea has a lot to do in terms of transparency in the business sectors, and in terms also of a friendly relationship between some high officials and businesses. Climate change is a recent and big issue, which is also very dangerous for all forms of life here on Earth. Global warming or climate change, which impacted all living things, island, people, birds, and fishes. This kind of impact can kill life and make people suffer. So, for example, there are many islands now that are sinking in the world. And the cause of this climate change mainly is anthropogenic. Anthropogenic means it is caused by human beings, us. Environmental corruption or climate corruption is basically the main problem of climate change. It means mismanagement of resources that we have been using. For example, overconsumption of natural resources and throwing away of our waste everywhere without properly managing. And also in terms of protecting the environment and reducing the impacts of climate change, there has been much funding to support those kind of climate actions, but in terms of the delivery and implementation, corruption is happening everywhere. It's the largest funding institution in the world, which is under the United Nations, and it is here in Korea, in Songdo. Its main mission is to help prevent or slow down the impacts of climate change, which affects most developing countries. For example, many islands are sinking, just like the Maldives, Fiji, and more desertification in Africa, and more heavy rains and floods in Bangladesh. So the projects of, or the main mission of Green Climate Fund is to fund projects that prevent those sort of impacts to those countries. And if you're asking what's my role, Transparency International through TI Korea, we have been monitoring the projects, the integrity units that are responsible for corruption and integrity policies. And also we provide inputs on the policies, and also we provide recommendations to make sure that the money goes to the beneficial countries that need most this funding. The South Korea has been playing huge role in terms of tackling climate change internationally. For example, South Korea has been sponsor or a host of Green Climate Fund. So South Korea, as an OECD country, has been funding projects for climate, especially for mitigation and adaptation for developing countries. In addition to that, South Korea is also transferring its green energy machineries and technology that will help developing countries to adapt to the impacts of climate change. Part of our activities in the governance integrity for climate, we have been doing picket at Gwanghwamun area before the COVID issue is back again. We are collaborating with other organizations that are also active on climate change issues. And part of our campaign is showing our arts, like this one. We have very generous volunteers that are making these arts, and it seems that it is attractive. That's one of the most important part of it, and it attracts the attention of people so that they will take a look at it and then think again about what they are doing and what they are contributing in terms of climate change and environmental issues. Fortunately today, we have here one of our painter volunteer, Regina. Please come in.
안녕하세요. 저는 레지나입니다. 저는 영국에서 왔고요. 한국에 온 지는 한참 됐는데 어렸을 때부터 환경운동을 하고는 있었고, 소위 말하면 패시브 액티비스트, 소극적인 활동가입니다. 적극적으로 활동을 하지는 못했지만 아브라함의 배우자로서 책자 번역이나 또 여러 가지 그림을 기부한다든지 그런 것에 참여하고 있고요. 그리고 어렸을 때부터 이제 독일에도 살고 이제 유럽에서 살았었기 때문에 여러 가지 그 환경에 대한 운동이나 그런 거 학교에서 계속 접할 수 있었고 계속 활동에 참여하고는 있었습니다. 네. 그러면 저게 첫 번째 그림인데 험백 웨일이라고 이런 수염난 고래 종류 중에서 가장 큰 종류라서 쓰레기를 이제 담기에 표현하기에 좋아서 바다의 환경 오염에 대해서 경고하려고 그 고래를 골랐고요. 이거는 그냥 쓰레기가 너무 많이 쌓여서 더 이상 이제 해변가에서도 즐길 수 없는 그런 환경에 대해서 얘기한 거고, 커네디언 구스라고 이걸 고른 이유는 이건 이제 약간 중의적인 의미인데 또 우리가 함부로 환경에 끼어들면 안 된다는 생각으로, 왜냐면 이제 캐나디언 구스 재킷 만드느라고 이제 억지로 털도 뽑고 그러잖아요. 그래서 뭐 그런 거랑 기름 유출에 관련된 경고의 의미로 그렸습니다.
Youth or students will play important role because you are the hope of the future and you have to do something about it. Nowadays we can see that there are many activist youth throughout the world. For example, we have Greta Thunberg, who is very active about it. I believe like the youth today, to ensure that you have the future, you have the resources, you have to strengthen, work together so that you can influence the policies that the government are trying to establish. In that way, you can ensure that you have the resources that you can use and you have a clean water and safe environment in the future. So for that reason, we have been trying as well to work with youth in South Korea. I believe that the youth has an important and relevant role in terms of tackling climate change. On the easy and basic level, youth, students and children can help in environmental protection by recycling. Also, when you're buying things, use recyclable materials. Or when you're buying coffee from the coffee shop, you can use your own cup, which is really very helpful in terms of in little ways. But if everybody is doing it, then it's really a good job. And on the second level, youth can also help tackle the problems of climate change by participating in actions, for example, in maybe protest or picketing. And in this way, you can influence the thinking and the actions of passers-by or people who are interested or attracted to your activities. And on the higher level, still youth has the capacity to influence policymakers. For example, one of these policymakers who is really active, she's still very young, Greta Thunberg. She has already been affecting and influencing policymakers in various governments and international organizations. So to finish this one, I would like to take this opportunity to thank you, TI Youth Korea, for this opportunity, and I hope that you will continue doing this sort of activity, which is really very critical in ensuring that the future generation will have a better place, good water, environment, and food. And thank you very much. 감사합니다. Fighting!